20 years ago, a seed was planted and cared for. We painstakingly nurtured it and weathered it against adversity until one day it blossomed and the fruits of our labor began to show. Today, millions have learned, shared, and been inspired by what our community has produced. We proudly served 21 million users from 204 countries in 2019. For our 85,000 technical articles, code samples, and videos, our 450,000 forum questions, and our highly anticipated conferences and events featuring keynote panels, live streams, and industry experts and influencers, we recognize and reward members for their dedication to the community. Through content contributions and mentorships, we ranked number 2,620 in the world with a reach of millions across our social media channels. Thanks to you, our global community of software and data developers grows stronger each day. For more information, visit us at CSharpCorner.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depends on where you are joining us. Welcome to the Growth Mindset Show. CSharpCorner's Growth Mindset Show is 10 a.m. every Friday. My name is Mahesh Chand, your host. And today we have a very interesting topic. We are going to talk about UI UX and why all of you guys who are joining us and girls, you're joining us. Why UX matters, user experience matters, and this is probably one of the most, least talked topic among software developers, user experience. And to me, I have been building the software for past 23, 24 years, and there's never enough talk about this topic. And today, that's what we are going to talk about. Before that, today here I am here in Philadelphia area, outside, nice, sunny, bright. We still have temperatures, still in 40s, 50s, getting a little warmer. Today is definitely in bright sun. Snow is melting, as last show we talked about. You saw snow everywhere. Snow is melting away. Things are getting better. COVID is getting better, a little bit better in the US. I know around the globe it's getting better. And people, if you're joining us from India, from Europe, I know in India it's getting better. Looks like things are slowly getting normal. So it looks like more people joined us. Again, everybody who's joining us first time, welcome to the show. And if you are our regular visitor, welcome back to the show. Today here, we are going to talk about UI UX and why software developers should at least think about when building this UI UX and building their new software. Going forward, I am starting a new series under Growth Mindset, and the focus will be building better software. And building better software is just not writing code, right? It's all about UI UX. It's about architecture. It's about building other components. It's about integration with other libraries, also databases, security, privacy, performance, scalability, integration, and everything around building software. And we will break down these episodes, each episode, one at a time. And that's why we are starting today with the UX. We are also today going to a little bit talk about some new things we are announcing on the show. So one thing I want to, let everybody know that starting next week, this show is going to be at noon. Right now it's 10 a.m., but it's going to be at 12 noon, which is 2 hours from now. So if you are going to join us next week, please join us in 2 hours later from now. If this show is for you. It's not for me. It's not for our company. It's not for CSharpCorner. It's for you. The show is all about you. So you need to think, is it helping you? If something we need to improve, you got to let us know. You can post comments. You can send us emails after that. This show is you. If you think you have a friend, coworkers, or any member you think will benefit from this show, please go and share on your social media. We are very active on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Even we are streaming on other platforms as well live. So welcome back to the show. It's going to be exciting day today, and we have a good we have a really good friend and expert on this topic today as a guest. We'll talk about in a second on that. We talked about showtime. We also have few upcoming conferences, and I think Simon, you can put this on the screen. We have two upcoming conferences coming up in next couple of weeks. The next conference is tomorrow. It's on full stack development. Looks like Simon is not here. He's not. So tomorrow we have a conference up. You can check out the conference details on 2020 website as well as on our CSharpCorner. So tomorrow you can see it's streaming live at 11 a.m. East. It's IST time, so it's Indian time. It's going to just focus on full stack development. Definitely check that out. If you are following us on our social media channels, I'm sure you are up to date with that. This is also going to live stream on Facebook, again, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as well. Then we have a growth mindset conference coming up on 19th. This is very interesting. This conference is just extension of this show we do here on growth mindset. And this is the conference where you're not going to learn coding. You're not going to learn how to build software. You're going to talk about just growth mindset and how you can change your thought process while building software. So we are going to apply all these concepts in software development. Maybe Simon, you can scroll down a little bit agenda. You can look at the agenda for a second. Oh, by the way, for all these conferences we are doing in this 2021, we are going to do 21 conferences. Each conference will be raising money for a different charity, and all the money will be going to these different kind of foundations or charities. In this growth mindset show, we have picked Bethel Township Police and Fire Union. So anything donations, we are accepting donations, $2, $5, $1, doesn't matter how it is. All money will go to these different charities. So those are two upcoming conferences. One more last thing before we go back to our show. We just announced one more live show today. Yesterday we announced one more new live show coming up on AI focused. So two of our Microsoft MVPs, they have joined. They're bringing their show live on csharp.live. As you can see on the screen, Simon is sharing here. It's called AI for Two. So this should be fun. It's coming soon, so keep an eye for that. All right. So let's get back to our show, why UX matters, right? So user experience is very important in our lives. It doesn't have to be just software, right? Look at our homes, look at our rooms, right? Look at our desks. Everything UX matters, right? User experience. Imagine, when I compare this building software can be compared to like building a home, like complex home, your own house, like really complex, not simple one, right? You can build this amazing architecture. You can have the amazing, awesome foundation. But if your door is behind, in the back side, nobody can find the door, or your AC is running, but nobody's getting the heat, or it's not painted. All these things matter. Same thing with software. So when you're building the software, user experience is very important. And today's our guest is a close friend of mine, Justin Mathews. Justin, he runs a company called Moxie Labs, and I will let him introduce more on his company and what they do. So let's welcome our guest, Justin Mathews. Hey, Justin, good morning and welcome to the show.
Hey, Mahesh, thank you for having me. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody at CSharpCorner. Thanks for joining today.
So tell us where you're joining us from. I know you are only 30 minutes from here from me, but tell us our audience, and then also talk a little bit about your company and what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So as you said, 30 minutes from Mahesh, so not too far away, but obviously from India originally, Kerala, actually. So about an hour south of Kochi. So, I'm happy to be here. And I think that, Mahesh kind of said it the correct way in the beginning, which is, I'm glad that this content is for you guys. It's not for, anybody else out there. We're not getting paid to do this, nothing like that. It's more about helping the community out to build better software. And I think if we start from that kind of pillar, I think you have a great starting point on what you should be thinking about when you build software. So Moxie Labs is a company that we created about 1.5 years ago. We have 12 clients now, about 26 employees. Half of those employees are offshore, anywhere from India, Philippines, China, and South Africa. We are constantly hiring, so send a resume if you're looking for work. But we specialize in design, development, strategy, and marketing of digital products. So could go anything from standard websites and mobile apps all the way through to custom web platforms, Alexa skills, any kind of IoT work we will do as well. So just like Mahesh, we're around the same age, I guess. So been in the industry about 22 something years, run other companies that have built plenty of software over the years, but I've tended to stay not necessarily just on the coding and development backend side, but more on the user side, and in fact, mostly in client services. So really trying to figure out what a client is actually trying to pitch. What do they want? And they have a great idea. They think they have the best idea in the world, but sometimes we can't build that, right? We have to figure out what that is. And I think before we even get to any of that, that's why Mahesh was saying design is probably the most important thing you'll think of, right? Everything, if you look around you, if you're looking at a monitor, if you're looking at your wall, if you're looking at the pictures in Mahesh's background, everything came from a drawing. Everything came from an actual piece of design.
Yeah, and people look at my background and they see crooked pictures because I just hung them myself, and I'm not a great designer, obviously. So first thing people notice is, oh, that picture is crooked. There's not aligned right. The same thing when building a software, when you will login page, or when you build any visual, somebody logs into your website and look at a profile or anything. First thing customer or any user looks at is how the user experience is, number one, and how the UI looks. That's the two things matters, right? So when you work with Justin, and I want to really drill down more into this, and I want to go into the other side where customer is thinking, right, and how you help them, bring them back to the reality, because customer always have a certain mindset what they want, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm also same way. And when I sit down with these new customers and they say, oh, we want this, but guess what? Based on our experience, there's other ways to do that too, right? So we kind of say, this is great, but maybe in today's trends, what the user wants, what actually end user and customer wants is this. Maybe you want to, merge these. So I want to talk to you like start with that. Like when you meet customers, how do you convince these customers, and how you explain, and how, kind of show them this is probably the right way to do it?
Yeah, I think that's one of the larger challenges people have, right? Because everyone wants to build the best thing they can for the customer. Everyone wants to keep their customer experience and client service very high as a level. But part of that level is also having tough conversations with the client a lot of times and saying what's doable and what's not doable, right? What is real world and what maybe is like down the line kind of real world, right? And then what especially can be fit into a certain budget versus what they actually want, right? Pie in the sky or the big moonshot thinking. Sometimes that's not available when you don't have as big of a budget. I'm glad you said UI there too as well, Mahesh. It's funny because a lot of people think UX is just UI, right? It's just a pretty picture. I think what people don't understand is before you even sit down with the client, right, you have to remember that you're coming from a mindset of, what is the audience that you're building this for, right? Everyone is a little bit different, and that's why UX really does matter. So UI is definitely a big thing, but UI is a part of UX. UX is a bigger piece of the entire thing. You can't swap them and think it's the same. It's a big, actually a big mistake that designers do a lot of times. I know majority of this audience that we're speaking to today is, development and engineering. What we have to remember as development and engineering is like, a lot of things can be designed, right? Can we build it properly? What are the right questions that we're asking the designer? And if you're building an agile methodologies, there should be no big surprises, right? Every 2 weeks you're doing a sprint, every week you're doing a sprint, whatever it is. You should be able to nail the functionality down within that time frame. If you can't do it, maybe it's too complicated, maybe it's not the right thing. So just make sure that when people say like, I want it to look like this, make sure that you distinguish UI versus UX. I know it sounds very basic and it's whatever, but a lot of people actually don't understand that. And then the second important thing there is to know the audience, because I think the audience is going to be your key factor when you begin the biggest part of UX, which is UX research, right? Doing your user research there and actually understanding the actual users after you understand the audience is going to be your next big step.
Yep. So yeah, definitely well said. And then obviously our audience, welcome. Looks like we're already getting a lot of comments. Everybody, welcome to the show. Who is joining us today? We are talking to Justin Mathews, CEO of Moxie Labs. Their focus is really building awesome UI UX, and I've seen some of the work Justin your team has done, and they are just amazing, right?
Yeah, we've built large products here for mostly U.S. companies, but some of them are global. Ralph Lauren, people like that, and we've seen a lot of these teams fail because they don't ask the right questions in the beginning. And I think your client appreciates it more because you have to remember everyone is human, right? So even your client, they have a job, they have a boss, they want to do great, they want to be a rock star, right? They want to move up in their job. The way to do that is having a real conversation, having them on that same level to say, hey, listen, this is what we can do, and this is what's going to be great, and this is what you can't do. And I've seen so many products that they go through this long development process, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, and nothing ever gets launched. By that time, maybe some of the trends have changed. By that time, the gestures on a mobile app might have changed. So you have to remember breaking these things down into snackable chunks that they can get live and put out to the public faster, which has always been a part of Agile methodology. But a lot of people still forget to do that.
Yeah, and you said it right. So getting anything live and faster is very important these days, and that's part of the agile, agile development. So before that, right? So you mentioned something called trends, right? You do research and you get these trends, and that's very important. So when these, our audience, they're watching, when they're building software, they usually build software from some kind of requirements, right? Requirement can be they can go to probably their Jira board and look at their, the current sprint and look at the requirements. But one thing, as an engineer, if I have to go back, I started coding when I started my career. If I have to go back, I did not spend enough time understanding the end user. I did not spend enough time understanding what business wants. I like, okay, need to build a login screen. Let me go and start boom, boom, and start writing code. So one thing I want to make sure is what's your message to engineers and developers who are watching this, that before even you start writing code, try to at least, you cannot be the customer, but at least try to understand where the end user and the customer and the business is coming from.
Yeah, correct. And I think that's probably the biggest point we'll talk about today, right? I think we were joking about this earlier, but you're the developer, but you are not the user. And you have to remember that. You have to remember that. You are not the user. You are the developer. And the reason that is so important is that, like I was mentioning before, usability testing is going to give you a completely different result sometimes. And it's going to shock you. And you're going to sit there and say, wow, I should have taken a completely different approach at developing this product, right? And as Mahesh said, usually you're used to getting requirements. Hopefully, the way we build here at Moxie Labs, we make sure that, design and we have, design and development teams working together. But majority of the time, that has to be led by design in the beginning, right? Usability, UX research, your UI folks. Usually we have one developer doing some consulting on that team and just saying, yes, no, this can be done, this can't be done, right? And just keep them moving. Once they are design complete and they give you that requirements document, hopefully that's in a place that you can sit there and say, great, I have my team of developers. We know what to do. Sometimes you have to do things in parallel. You're doing web and mobile in parallel, things like that. But if they haven't done their usability testing, if they haven't done the research, ask them that right away. Just say, hey, listen, I got the requirements. Have you guys completed your usability research yet? Have you completed your UX testing yet? And if they haven't yet, just make sure they know, almost as a disclaimer, and say, okay, cool, just making sure you guys know, unless this is going to be a prototype in which you're going to go test it after, there's going to be some changes that probably come up later. The reason that's a big deal is that might change the budget, that might change the scale of the project, that might just change the timing of the project.
Yeah, but definitely. And one other thing I want to bring here is that, especially these days, when you are building this product, sometimes in most of these, especially if you're building an app or website, your audience can be n number of users, right? There's literally, you don't know, it can be every age, every group. How does as simplicity plays a role in that? To me, I have always been a big fan of building simple things, right? I don't like to build complex things. Like, when you see developers designing, they put too many things there. And then same thing with some design teams, right? Not every design team is really great. So you want to spend a little bit more, like, what elements do you look for when, let's say, you got a new client, a new project, and you're starting it? Let's say, just take an example, it's an app, mobile app. How do you look at what are the key factors as a use, from the top level? You look at, is it simple, is it, what are those factors you look for, and then you say, yeah, this is good or this is not good?
Yeah, you've mentioned a lot of it right there, right? Obviously clean design, and if you've done the user testing and the UX research in the beginning, you've probably developed personas, maybe some user journeys there, so that you can understand how a user responds on your product, right? What are they doing? Why are they there? The funny part is, they talked about attention spans back in the day, right? And I know that there was a study in I think 2015 from Microsoft. It said that the attention span is generally, for people, 12 to even lower, like 8 seconds, right?
Yeah,
and,
8 seconds.
And it was like 12 seconds in 2000. I think it was 8 seconds in 2015. And they were saying, I remember watching it, they were saying that a goldfish has an attention span of 9 seconds, right? So if you look at even me and Mahesh, we have attention spans of maybe 4 or 5 seconds, right? So
yeah, we're just moving around.
Right. So you have to remember to not overwhelm users with too much information. I see new companies that are launched, and we usually do a lot of research just to see what's out there, right? New companies that are launched, and we go and look, and I see navigation bars full of panels, full of things they can choose. And it reminds me of going to a restaurant when your menu is like 30 pages, and you sit there and you're like, wow, this is taking me 20 minutes to pick my appetizer because I don't know. There's too much information here, right?
Yeah.
When you want them to go and buy a pair of shoes from your mobile app, you need to show them the path that you need to go through. They can't see 5,000 pairs of shoes. You're never going to get a sale, right? So, make sure you're creating that design for shorter attention spans, and just don't overwhelm them with too much information. That's a big key.
Yep. All right, we are talking about UX matters with Justin Mathews. Looks like we have a few people joined. Anurag, Atul, welcome to the show. Bhaskar, again, welcome back to the show. Mega, Nancy, Azmat, I know you guys. Ashish Bhatnagar, welcome to the show. Today we are here with the CEO of Moxie Labs, Justin Mathews. We're talking about UX Matter. Any questions you guys have about UI UX? Please feel free to put in your comments. We are seeing some good questions. We are going to take questions in the second half, probably in 10 minutes or so. So keep those questions coming. If you think this show is useful to you, feel free to share on your social media and let your friends know, coworkers know, because our goal is to help as many as people we want, right? We are just chit-chatting here. We are just bringing our experience. We are not really going and telling you what to do. What we learned from our past 23 or some years of experience, mistakes we made, and now we are learning from that. All we're trying to do is share with you, and hopefully this will benefit some of you. And just keep those questions coming. So before Justin, I have more questions, and I have more. You want to add more to anything in your list? You want to talk more about building this UI UX, what developers should be and engineers should be thinking?
Yeah, if you guys are taking notes, right, I would say
take notes.
Yeah, take notes. This is one place to take notes. I would say the general UX process, right? The process it's not set in stone, okay? For every client and every product and everything that you guys do, it's going to be a little bit different. However, there is a general process, and general process starts with that product definition. Really, figuring out, what do you want to build? What is the thing that you're trying to build? Then that moves, and it's kind of circular, right? It moves to research, then it moves to analysis. So analyzing that research to make sure that it goes back and you understand the product definition of this whole thing. Then you design, and then you validate. Validating is the user testing portion of that, right? And then you go back in and make sure that the product definition is correct with your validations. And those are the 5 pillars, I would say, of a UX process, just as a baseline for everybody.
And then, these days we are all doing agile, right? How important it is to involve your end customer when you have something ready to show them. And then you want to add a little bit more to that?
Yeah, I think, it really depends how you're building it, right? So if you're building and you're prototyping, that is a great place to get client feedback. It's a great place to even talk to the client and say, hey, listen, shop it around your company a little bit, take it around to users, bring it up on test flight and go walk around and see if, just watch them, see how they use it, see if they get frustrated, see if they're like, wow, this is really nice, really easy. I understand how to use it. I think the client side of things is also funny because at Moxie, we like to say that we are designing and developing for our clients' clients, right?
Yeah.
So our clients,
end users.
Correct, right? So our clients come to us with a product, but they're not the user either. So making sure that, some kind of prototype, or even if it's just built-in balsamic or something very, very easy, envision something like that where it's maybe there's no functionality, but they can figure out the gestures and see how a user journey and a user path might go. I think that's huge to bring a client in because at the end of the day, these are, again, we're humans. It's a visual kind of type of thing. They're like, okay, well, I envision this to be something that gets the user to understand more medical information on my pharma app. But some apps you don't need. I had a client once that came to us and said they wanted to build a back pain app. They wanted to spend a lot of money, $500,000 US, on a back pain app. And we said, why? Like, what's just the simple question? Why? So we think users are going to download this app and they're going to get a lot of information on back pain. I'm like, why wouldn't they just go to Google and Google back pain? And as much as I want to take your $500,000, we have to do right by our clients too, right? So sometimes clients aren't always correct and they don't know what they're doing sometimes, but it's up to us to actually show them that proper way. That pivoted into something else. It actually pivoted into a really cool thing where, we had videos from doctors and showing them stretches and things like that they can do for back pain. But originally it was just like informational app. And you just have to remember, I think that prototype would come out. If they saw a back pain app and they saw us prototype it and they looked at it, they'd look at it and be like, wow, this is a really dumb product. We don't need this, So I think keeping it really truthful, really, high communication and real with the client is going to take you a long way in your relationship.
Yeah, and back pain reminds me that most of our audience, and including me, we sit a lot. So our lower back pain often has problems, right? And I was talking to a couple of my teams the other day and like, oh, my back pain is so bad. I went to therapist and all that. So what we are going to do is my show will be just focused on back pain. So if you have any tips, where I'm going to share my personal tips, what I do, and my back is pretty good now because 6 months ago, my back was hurting. I went to doctor like, oh, you need to go to chiropractor. You need to come every week. Like, seriously? I said, forget it. So I did some research online. I created my own, some exercises, which I take breaks and do in between these 2 hours gaps. And now I feel fantastic. There are no back pains. I can sit, I can stand. So if you have back pain, come back to the show. We are going to announce this soon. We are going to talk about back pain a lot in coming show. That's what this growth mind is all about. We are not focused on static things. We change things all the time. It's agile. The show is agile. Okay.
Hey, solving problems is what we're talking about, right? And back pain is a problem. So I agree.
Right now, it's a big problem. Back pain is a big problem. So before we take a break, let's take one question. We're going to take one question. Simon, you want to put one question? Then we'll take more questions the second half of the show. Take one question and we'll take 2 minutes break. Okay, here's a question. The question from Bhaskar: what should be UX development approach which helps us keep users stick to the app? Basically, user engagement.
Yeah, what's funny? I've always told people one of our tricks when we are prototyping is to actually use as much real content and imagery and things like that as possible. And I'm only saying that because a lot of times when you put something in front of a user's face, and if it doesn't have the right things in it, they sit there and they focus on the things that you don't care about. They sit there and they focus. They're like, well, I don't like this color, and you're like, that's not the final color. Like, we just put that there as a prototype. I think the more true your end product can be, when even in a prototype fashion, the better, right? And what's great about that is, if, let's go back to that color thing. If 10 people say, hey, this red is too jarring, I come here and I feel like it says stop, don't go forward, well, then maybe you have a little bit of actual information there to help you out in the future, to say, you know what, this really tested really bad. And that goes for your content, that goes for your imagery, because people think visually. They look at it and they say, I like this or I don't like this. And I always tell people, when they do UX, they're like, it's funny, we're doing UX, we're figuring out the problems, right? We're figuring out what users are going to encounter. And I always like saying, hey, listen, you're not actually figuring out the problems, you're figuring out the opportunities. And you're figuring out the ways that you can make this thing better, so that they can literally enjoy their experience, tell other people about the experience, come back again and use it, and really fit into their lives, right? I always look at the apps I have on my screen, on my phone. And some of them are just there for me to test. And some of them I sit there and say I use every day. And then some of them I'm like, wow, I haven't touched that app in a year and a half. Why is it on my phone? And it's just taking up space. And if you want to keep it sticky, I think that was the word you used, it has to be something that really the user engages with. You got to know your audience. And I say a lot of times that comes in that prototyping, early user testing kind of sessions, figuring out your imagery, figuring out your content, making relevant content, figuring out your color schemes, things like that. It's actually very, very important. You guys know that by now.
That's a good point. And I run this into all the time. I will give a screen to a designer, right? And designer will put just any name, any image, empty icon with no image in it. And then I get the UI and I look at it and I show it to clients like, wait, this is wrong. And then I have to kind of explain, like, this is just a mock-up.
Yep.
So then I have to go back and tell the designers all the time, listen, guys, yeah, you said, put the right content that makes sense, and it should look like it's real content. So when you are designing a screen, or either static or website, or showing a demo, even POCs or any of these prototypes you're building, I think putting putting real content makes sense, and it helps a lot to the end customers or the users who are watching and giving you feedback.
Correct.
Good point. And I think so. Back to this. What we do is, I think there's more question coming up, but we're going to take a 2-minute break, and then we'll be right back. And then when we come back, we are going to more talk about the UX design, why UX matters. We're going to talk about also how to take your existing app and how to upgrade to the new, either new mobile phone came out. What are the best practices you do, Justin, in your teams? And also, how do you learn new things, like what's the new trends coming up, and what else people can go and learn, upgrade themselves? Because at the end of the day, that matters. You have to upgrade yourself. Otherwise, this year is something else. Next year, this will be not relevant anymore. And then also, I want to cover some of your your hiring going on. What kind of people you hire usually. And we'll spend a little more time on that. And anything else you have in your list, we will cover that. So, everybody, thank you, and we'll be right back.
Here at Mindcracker, we create artificial, virtual, and mixed reality games and apps, voice-enabled skills and apps, and intelligent apps, and integrate AI with IoT products. We offer advisory services for innovations and startups. We provide cloud and code security and performance services. We also offer AI/ML blockchain development, consulting, and training. Just visit www.mindcracker.us to make your dreams into a reality. COVID makes us feel like this, and work from home like this. But what if work looked like this? With a leader like this, and a payday that feels like this. Learn how to change your mind and your mindset with the Growth Mindset Show every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Hey guys! Can't believe we haven't seen each other since graduation in May. What's going on?
Not much. With the pandemic, I can't really do anything right now.
Me too. I mostly just stay at home, hang out with my dog, and watch the news.
I feel you. Have you guys been able to get jobs yet?
Funny that you ask. Gary and I actually have been working on something together.
Yeah, we came up with an idea for a startup that's an app that will help us stay active since we both have been sitting around so much during this quarantine.
That's genius. I could definitely use something like that. When are you guys launching it?
Well, that's the issue. We don't really know how to build it, so we're kind of stuck.
I know of this company that does startup advising if you guys are interested.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're called Mindcracker, and they'll help you validate your idea and connect you with angel investors and help you build everything from your product MVP to your technical team and even your go-to market planning and execution.
Wow, that's awesome. Do you know how we could get in touch with them?
Yeah, you can just visit their website, mindcracker.us.
That's awesome, May. Thanks. I'm excited to get started on this.
Of course. Good luck, guys, and let's talk soon.
Thanks, May.
All right, welcome back to the Growth Mindset Show. My name is Mahesh Chand. I'm your host. Today we have guest Justin Mathews, CEO of Moxie Labs. Moxie Lab is a local company here in Philadelphia area. We are talking about UI UX and why UX matters. It's very important for engineers and software developers to think about, before building any applications and so on and so forth. If you have any questions, we take questions here. Welcome back to the show. I see some new people join. Welcome to the show. Ask your questions. We have comments. If you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, you can just write their comment there and we will see the comment. So, Justin, we just talked about UI, UX, why it matters and how you and your team interacts with the clients. Couple of things I want to cover here before we take the question is that number one, when you're looking at your team and you're hiring new team members, what do you look for? Like, what is your, few qualities you look for? Like, yeah, this is our new employee.
I think fit is one of the biggest things for us, only because they're working with larger teams. So a lot of people have resumes and they have the skills and they have the backgrounds, right? But how is it to work with that individual? So figuring out that, at my level, kind of running the company, my level is to look back into the company and see where I can remove any roadblocks, move some mountains for people, and make sure that the chemistry is right between the teams. And I think one of the biggest things I look for in an interview is just like, would I want to work with this person, right? Would I want to actually be partnered with this person on a project? Sometimes these projects are 6-8 months. So you have to remember, it's like having I know it sounds crazy, but a partner, like a boyfriend, girlfriend type of situation. So, would I want to actually deal with this person for 6-8 months? And I think that a fit for our company is probably first, culture fit. Culture fit
is very important. So I understand it's a culture fit and every company has a little different culture. What are these points you look like anybody who is watching this show when they want to improve themselves? What do you think they should be improving if they don't have that right now? Like few quality, like to be communication, it should be team member, or what are those few qualities?
Yeah, I think, the first place I usually check is I actually ask people around me. I know that sounds crazy, but sometimes you actually have to be very humble and ask some people around you for genuine feedback. Like, hey, what can I do better? You've worked with me before. What are my pros and my cons, right? Is there anything that I can do better that would help me finish a project off better? Can I ask better questions? What is it? So actually having peer feedback from somebody around you that will actually give you real feedback and not some fake feedback, but not just a friend, right? Making sure that you ask somebody around you. And then also when you finished a project, let's say you were a contractor on a project or whatever, an exit interview, I always love saying that, it's a lot of times a company will give you an exit interview, but it would be great if you can give an exit interview to the company, right? You can share information such as, hey, what they can improve, but it would be great to get real feedback on, hey, why, what else can I fix for myself maybe ask them real hard questions like, hey, why didn't you re-sign my contract? Like what are some of the factors that go in there? How can I improve? And would you ever accept me in the future if I did improve these things? So when it comes to culture of fit, well, unfortunately, everyone's not the same, and everyone is not a great or happy individual to work with, and that's why we all have our differences, right? But it depends on really what you want in life, and I think for me, it depends on what makes you tick and what makes you keep going. And for us, I will literally ask my employees, hey, listen, how do you think I handled that situation? Or how do you think that, do you think I should have done something differently with the client there? Should I have stuck up more for the team? What did I do wrong? And really getting some genuine feedback there, because that's the only way you'll grow. And it's up to you at that point, right? It's up to you to take that feedback and do something with it.
Yep. That's a good point. That's definitely a good point. And be open and honest with it, whatever feedback you are giving, right? Some people don't want to give feedback. They will say, oh, I'll hurt feelings. Don't worry about feelings. You got to give the open and transparent and honest feedback.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to take you further in your career, right? Once people, when I look into my network and I need people ASAP, for instance, I had an interview right before this with an iOS developer out of the Philippines, and I really want to work with them, right? When I look at my network, that's what I look for first. I'm like, you know what? I have a list of 10 iOS developers here. I got to think about the project. I got to think about what this person's done in the past. And then I got to think about the people that this person's going to work with. And I sit there and say, great, I have the right person here. Let me go talk to him and pull him onto a contract.
Yep. Yeah. So if you have developers, you have developers, and you are working with a company of great developers, reach out to Justin. Maybe you may be working with him, and then you can culture fit there. That's important part.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's take some questions now. We have several questions coming up. Simon, you want to start putting some questions? All right. So here we go. I think Abhijit is asking about some tools. What tools you use in UI, UX, which your company use, and what would your recommendation be?
Yeah. So the interesting part now is we're seeing a lot of clients bringing in they bring design in-house, right? And the problem is they don't really know. So they hire a bunch of designers, right? They don't know what to do with them and how to manage them. So we're brought in generally to run the process for them, really start from the beginning and build frameworks and structures out for them. So when you're talking about tools, every client might be a little bit different. So I would say educate yourself on many tools as possible because every client uses a different tool. So we have clients that use Adobe Experience Design. We have clients that use Figma. We have clients that use InVision. We have clients that use Origami, Balsamic. So I'll make sure that we, I'll send you those things, Mahesh or Simon, and you can kind of post it to everybody. But there's a whole lot of tools, but I think the most popular are probably those, and then I would add probably Sketch. Sketch is another big one that a lot of clients are using these days.
Great. Simon, keep going. Let's take a few more questions. We have a lot of questions to cover. Okay, what do you think will be the next big thing in UX design? That's a great question, Anurag. I want to know that.
Yeah, I think that is a great question. In my opinion, I would continue going down the AI route. You see the chatbots and conversational UI and all of that becoming, obviously everyone's at home. Everyone's, they're not going to stores right now and things like that. And I think that those chatbots, some of them that I've seen that are incredible, like in Amazon, I could return a package through an Amazon chatbot. And I think that's amazing. I think that for me, where it can give me literally, I don't have to talk to anybody. I don't have to waste my time. I can do it on the fly while I'm doing something else. And, even for like an Amazon situation, I can select a product that I didn't want. I can give them the reasoning right there in the chatbot. They will shoot me the packing label right in the chatbot, and I can send it off or I can drop it off somewhere, and I think that's really amazing. So as your kind of AI, conversational AI starts really developing, you're going to see things develop quickly. There's going to be a lot of new things that happen in that within the next year or so, because people don't want to do peer-to-peer buying anymore. They don't want to go to a store. They don't want to buy a product. And I think, as much as we can improve those kind of online kind of experiences, I think for me, at least in the clients that I'm working with, that would be a huge win for them. The second part of that is, here, at least in the U.S., a lot of physicians, when new drugs are coming out and whatnot, they usually have sales forces from these different pharma companies coming in the door and giving them samples and talking to them about the drug and whatnot. Well, these sales forces no longer have access to doing that to the physicians. So some of the things that we've been building out are really amazing conversational AI kind of systems and chatbots for the doctors to talk to the sales reps to ask them questions, right? Direct lines. They can order samples from there and it's shipped to them. It's just, removing that human component. As much as we don't want to do that, and humans do need to interact, this is the next way and the best way to probably do that with your users.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, very good points. And voice is a big thing, right? Voice is growing. Alexa is growing. Like all of us have Alexa at home, right? We're talking to our phones. We're talking to our cars. We're talking to our homes. So I think voice is a big thing. People don't want to, and plus this COVID now, people don't want to touch and meet people. So it's like, hey, stay away from me.
Yeah. So I guess if you were to take anything from that, I think that's absolutely correct, right? I think it's probably a combination of like intuitive and predictive AI, as well as voice and chatbots and whatnot. So I think you're right.
Yep. Great point. Let's take more questions, Simon. We have 10 more minutes to go. So we don't take as many questions. We want a lot of questions coming up. What are some website or apps that you think they have the great design? Like, I think some people want to see some kind of, okay, this is the thing I want to follow. Is there any website you personally or your team like this is it? Obviously, some you may have designed yourself, which is publicly available.
Yeah, I might be a little bit biased if that's the case, but we love saying some of the, if I was to look over here in the U.S. again, food industry wise, there's apps like Chipotle, there's apps like Starbucks, which is, obviously global. There's things like that are best in class, best practices for how a user should get from the beginning of what they want to do all the way to the end, which is check out, in that case, and get the product. If it's more for informational purposes, I would say a lot of this is also like yourself. Like what are some of the resources you love to use yourself, on your phone? And again, I would look at that phone and actually look into, what you like the most. I think one of the things we're getting into,
I was just looking at the phone, see which one I like.
Yeah, I think that's what people are going to do. That's natural, right? I've been seeing a lot of, when you see a new industry come out, not new, but for instance, something like Bitcoin mining and whatnot, right? I see a lot of great websites out there that are very informational. They're very intuitive. And so if you go to like nicehash.com, they're one of the ones out there that I feel like a beginner can get into an industry that they don't know about and become an expert, within a few days. And I think those are the best websites, right? Those are the kinds of websites that they don't have a ton of information, but if they do, it's in some kind of knowledge base. It's in some kind of, frequently asked questions or something like that, right? It's designed in a way that is clean. It's not ambiguous. It's not threatening. When you go to it, you feel like welcomed. And I'm a creature of habit. I will use the same things over and over again if I like the experience.
Yeah. And I just downloaded this app. It's growing really, called Robinhood, right? Robinhood. Every young guy is using it for investing, and I want to see why this is so popular. And I download it. It's very simple. It only has few things you can do, and I think beginning is a good start. To start with, that is simple as design, where people don't get confused about, and they don't need to ask questions. If you're signing up and logging in and you can get the idea what this app does without asking any questions or learning, to me that's the best design.
Yeah, and you got to keep in mind also that us as humans, and also maybe in this age group or whatever, like people are used to using mobile phones now, right? They're used to the gestures, they're used to a certain way to do things. So if you go to Uber and you're a new user, they're going to run you through a process to set up your account first, right? They want your credit card information. They want your username. They want things like that. People are used to that in any app they go to, right? So don't make the process convoluted. Don't make the process confusing. Make it the same as, there's no need to reinvent the wheel here. Go find the best ones that are out there. You can pretty much copy the same flow and process. Get the people into the app as fast as possible.
Yeah, good point. And I think I agree with that. If you're building something with people are already used to doing it, that's probably, there's no learning curve there. And that's very important.
Yeah, that
All
consistency,
right.
especially a lot of clients that have multi websites or multiple apps, they want a
Yeah.
certain consistency with the design. People
Yep.
are used to it, and they're like, you know what? I'm on Facebook. Well, that's why Instagram operates a lot like Facebook. They're owned by the same entity. People are used to using it a certain way. They know what's successful or not because they're looking at data. They're looking how people use those products.
Yep. All right. So next question is from Nancy. She's asking, what if somebody wants to start with UI UX? Where should they start from as a guidance?
I think it starts with that process I mentioned. I think really and not deviating, right? So once you've created that process, especially with a client, you need to stick to that process pretty much the whole time. And if you need to create layers within that, because maybe the client is a regulated industry like finance, as you mentioned, Robinhood, financial apps and websites require an entire different philosophy when they come to building, right? Same thing with pharmaceuticals, at least here in the U.S. There's things they can say and there's things they can't say. So I think really sticking hard to that initial design process is very key. The other thing is, again, you can't think like a developer. I've learned that the hard way. My background is in IT, but I've really moved away from IT in a lot of ways because I've had to get out and talk to people. I've had to get out and become almost I have to champion sometimes their apps for them, right? You have to take it and literally understand everything they want and then come back to them and say, hey, based on what you said and what you wanted, this is the proper strategy and this is the proper way to build this. This is what we believe. Do you agree? So sometimes you have to be a champion for your clients.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think there are some universities, colleges, there are some online universities, they're offering UI UX design courses as well. So that's where they follow good guidelines. If you're trying to say, where can I learn? Definitely there's online. I know a couple of universities, virtual universities online in the US. They are really good at providing some courses, right? Any university you have or college you have in your list, which you think they do a good job?
I like Udemy. To be honest with you, I think it's a really simple interface and whatnot. I've used Code Academy in the past, and only because they're starting to really. A lot of people on there are talking about design, right? Because design is all over the place. And then if you don't want to, if you want to get super simple, you can actually just go to YouTube. And I know that sounds crazy, but there's so much information there too. Some of the online universities that you're talking about, sometimes a client and a customer will pay for that. They usually have some kind of credits there that they can actually apply for education, and the educational credits will actually pay for a course. I would highly suggest that. Just simple things, simple Photoshop, Illustrator, just simple things. And sometimes the brains, my brain doesn't work like that either. Trust me, I can't write a line of code. I cannot. I will fully admit that. But I know the right people to surround myself with. I know how to speak to them, and I know enough to be dangerous, right? And I think that's the key as you transition to understand design. You can't just say, I need a great designer or whatever. You yourself needs to understand some of the basic mindsets and the basic principles of how it works so that you have a better starting point for the product that you want to build, especially if you're trying to start a revolution.
Yeah, and just start from beginning and just keep getting improvement in this all learning curve, right? Any take more questions, Simon? Take a few more. What is the best practice in UI design? This is it's not a simple question to answer. This could, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not simple, but I will just go back to what I said before. The best practice in UI design, in my opinion, is to start with UX. So UI is just a part of UX, right? So really start with that product identification. What is the product? What is this supposed to do? Who's my audience? You got to ask yourself those questions initially before you draw any pretty pictures, before you do anything like that, right? And then for us here at Moxie, we will prototype. We will do wireframing for websites and mobile apps at all times before we do anything. It's part of the process. If a client doesn't want it and they don't want to pay for it, we won't do it because that is how you create successful products, end products at the end.
That's great. Yeah, putting yourself in the customer's end user's shoes is very important. So if you are designing a website for programmers, you need to think like program. If you're designing a website for teenager, you need to think like teenager. If you cannot think like a teenager, try to talk to a couple of teenagers, how they think. You need to understand that. That's the most important part. If you're selling to 80 years old, if your end customer is 80 years old, you need to understand what they're thinking and what their expectations are, right? They may not be good at using iPhone screens. They may just need a bigger screens. They may need a font size of 18 because visually their eyes are not that good, right? So all that thing needs to be keep in mind when you're designing these screens, right? UI is important. UI is the gateway to entire function. It's like a door to a house, right? If your door is all messed up, people can't fit in there. You know it's gonna go inside the house.
Yeah, and we put the door on in the UI side, but the strategy of where you put it and how big it is and how many people have to go through it all happens during UX. So yes, I totally agree.
So they go side by side. You need to understand UX to build the good UI. Yep.
Correct.
All right. All right, we'll take one more question. We have, 1 more minute to go, and then we'll close down after that. This is your last question from Atul Gupta. It's a good question. What inspired you to become a UX designer or your team?
Yeah, you know what? Obviously, I'm not a UX designer myself. However, I'm a human being, right? Everything around me is designed. And I think that inspiration for different people can come from anything. So if in fact I have a client, we have a large global furniture client coming to us for some new work. One of the things I will do is I will look at every app or website that's in their furniture kind of realm. Like what is there? What is out there? Who are their competitors? What are they doing that's great? What are they doing that's not great? And then on top of that, what I love doing is also then going to the other ones that we were talking about before, Starbucks, Tesla, people like that. What is the best in class? What are people doing outside of the industry? What can we bring to their industry to enhance the experience for our end user? So I really think that inspiration can come from anywhere, but you have to have a baseline of where you start.
Well, I disagree. I think you're a great UX designer because I've seen your house and how your bulbs are, light bulbs are, and how your different trigger points are. So I think you're good at it.
That's good. I think sometimes people think when I put these black rimmed glasses on, all of a sudden I'm a designer. I'm not a designer. Trust me.
Before we close down, this is almost done. I always like to ask like how you're handling this whole pandemic situation and what you do for fun.
Yeah. So, running a team remote during a pandemic is, as you have probably dealt with yourself, Mahesh, is not the easiest of situations. So, number one, checking in with every employee, no matter what their level is, is the biggest key, right? Really just thinking about the fact that everybody's dealing with something different at home. Everybody's dealing with something different in their mind, meaning that there are some people that during the pandemic, they're so used to having people around them. They're so used to having, interactions and things like that. And it's changed their life, and there's some other people that love this, right? That they're like, they were born for a pandemic. They sit there and they're like, I just want to sit in my hole. I'm great. No problem. Don't bother me, right? So I think everybody's a little bit different. So checking in with everyone is a big thing. And then also, again, at my level, we're running a company. So from that standpoint, it's the culture side of things. So what are we doing to enhance the culture? What are we doing for our employees? Just to make sure that we're taking care of them at all times, and I think that, the employees deserve a little bit more, especially if there's no overhead, right? If we're not paying for an office anymore, if we're not, if we're using offshore employees and things like that, we know our budgets might be a little bit higher. I love investing back into into our employees. So at Moxie, we just created a masterclass account. So masterclass.com. You guys asked about Udemy and things like that in the past. We're going to offer that to our employees free of charge. Let them learn, let them become better people. With Masterclass, it's a little bit different than just learning design and development. You can learn how to cook. You can learn how to produce a movie. It's just keeping them kind of sane in a very insane time, right? And I think that all of that matters. A lot of people are not used to having their kids home all day as they work, right? Maybe we as the development community, we're used to a lot of this. A lot of people aren't, So really making sure that they know we care about them. They know that we're here if they, ever have any needs, and really just being good people and kind. I think really I'm telling you, like, you don't think about it because you're running a business and you're running around it all day. You don't have the attention span like we talked about, but that goes a long way with your employees. And I think that, I will never change that from what, at the end of the day, we're human. We have one life, and you have to be happy. If you're not happy on the client that you're working on, if you're not happy with the work that you're doing, make the change. If you don't want to be a developer, go to design. If you don't want to work with a certain client because they're treating you the wrong way, change customers.
Make the change. That's the message for today's show, is make the change somehow. Anyway, you are not happy, make the change. So with that said, Justin, we had an awesome show. We loved it. Whatever you share with us, so many great things. And thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And we love to have you back on the show again.
Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate CSharpCorner for having me. I look forward, and maybe we'll do a part 2 one day on back pain. So
yes, we'll do part 2 one day on back pains. Yep. Thank you so much, Justin. See you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
So that was our show today. We had a great show. We talked about UI, UX, and different things about the companies. As I said earlier, thank you all for joining us the show. And go check out these 2 upcoming conferences coming up. One is tomorrow on full stack development, where you can learn the full, how to become a full stack developer, full day of free learning. And then on 19th, we have a conference coming up on growth mindset, where we are just going to talk about how to, think differently, change your mindset, and not just stuck in the same mindset. And one last thing, next week, this show will be at 12 noon Eastern. So if you are, used to joining us 10, it's going to be 2 hours late. And the reason we made the change is in the US, not many people are able to join us because 10 a.m. Fridays, they're still working. They have meetings and they have, work going on. So we have changed that to noon, so our more wider audience can join us. So with that said, thank you so much for joining us, and I will see you next week.